There's misconceptions in the Marvel Strike Force community. Some from the devs misinterpreting how the players are playing the game, and some from the players misinterpreting what the devs' intentions are with some of the content. So in this video, I am reviewing the awesome interview that Philosopher did with Cerebro last night, with Philosopher himself and my buddy OMG. And if you're ready for all that, guys, we got another roundtable discussion. Find that like button and let's go smash it.
ValleyFlyin.
What is up, Valley Maniacs? ValleyFlyin is here. Welcome to the ValleyFlyin channel, and I hope you're having a great day. If it's your first time here, hit that subscribe button for more great Marvel Strike Force content. Hit that subscribe button for all that good stuff, the notification bell as well. But I am joined by my two buddies, Philosopher and OMG. How are you? How are you guys doing? Took a little while. Took a lot of takes for the intro, but how are you guys doing? OMG, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I got to say that there's these hidden gems that everyone experiences in life. You know, maybe it's waking up and seeing the birds, sing, or maybe it's a cup of coffee. For it's me watching ValleyFlyin do his intro multiple times.
Unfortunately, I didn't record all those outtakes, but yeah, we didn't record it a lot of times this week. Philosopher, brother, that was an awesome interview that you did with Cerebro yesterday. I think you did as well as he allowed you to do, and you asked some awesome follow-up questions as well. Kudos for that, brother. What was your experience? What was your reaction after that was done? How did you interpret that interview?
I thought it went pretty well. He was actually taking on a tough job, and getting beaten up by everybody. I mean, there's a lot of people in my Twitch chat were mad at him. And yeah. I use the analogy, he's the waiter who brings you your food. He's not the guy who makes the food. He's like the CEO of Scopely or whatever. He's just the guy they throw out there for us to beat up on and complain to. So I thought he did a pretty good job. I obviously didn't answer a lot of questions, but he said more things than I expected on certain points. And I thought, you mentioned in the intro, Valley, that there were some misconceptions. I thought that was some of the most interesting stuff from the interview.
Yeah, that was my big takeaway. Obviously, there's a lot of great points, and anybody that hasn't seen that interview, I suggest you guys check that out. The link's going to be down below to that interview. I did want to talk about three things that stood out for me, and these are kind of some misconceptions that I had about the way the devs were doing things. And I think one of the points was about some of the content that the devs are putting out there and how it's designed, because I see what people are saying. I see what Reddit says and all that stuff, and it doesn't seem to jive with that. So the first thing I want to bring up, and this was said to the envoys in the envoy chat a while ago, a call that we had. I'm glad that you got it out there and was made public, but one of the big things that he said was the devs expect the players not to spend more than 2 hours a day playing Marvel Strike Force. How many hours a day do you spend playing actual Marvel Strike Force, Philosopher?
Wow. On certain days, if we have like a war against Legion or something, I'll be online all day long. Like I will literally clear out my afternoon schedule from work and spend it coordinating attacks and, helping people with their counters and all that sort of stuff. And even on just a normal day, it takes at least 3-4 hours at least. And that's with me being a floater on a lane. So I've got a lane partner and not carrying the heavy load. It takes a lot, particularly on war days. Oh my God.
What about you, MJ? I know you did a poll for your audience.
Yeah. Do you have the poll to show up? This was a poll that I put up actually several days before this interview. And when I saw this part of the interview, I went, you're out of your minds. Now, I want to acknowledge that, someone that's at level 55 may be only spending 2 hours in the game, or someone that's casual. And please understand that I interact with highly engaged players almost exclusively on Twitch and or in my alliance. So what I'm finding is that the data that I got several days before this interview is that 70% of the people that I talk to feel that they are spending between 3 and 4 hours a day in the game. I know that is my experience. 1000% on a war day, I know I'm spending at a minimum 3 to 4 hours playing the game. And then I just don't, the math doesn't add up when you start saying that, how many, we've got 2 lanes in raid, and a lot of the nodes take 5 minutes. How much does that add up? I mean, that's more than an hour right there.
Yeah.
in rating. Never mind RTA, never mind arena, never mind war. I just don't see it being less than 2 hours by any number.
Yeah, I think for myself, I'm closer to that 2 hour mark, but I'm not playing any RTA anymore, and I purposely moved to a very casual war alliance. So removing that, maybe you get that 2 hours mark. But if you're trying to get any of these objectives for RTA, that throws that out the window. And if you're playing war, even semi-competitively, that's going to take that through the roof as well, especially in those war days, especially in the beginning of war. But I think a lot of that disconnect and that 2 hour limit, why we're reaching over that and they're not feeling that, I think they play the game a different way. And what he was saying earlier in the interview was there's about 30 devs that play the game at a hardcore, high level. Cerebro mentioned his TCP is almost a little over 9 million. But I think there's a little disconnect of what they define as a hardcore player and what we define. What was your interpretation of what they define as a hardcore player, Philosopher?
Yeah, I gotta say, man, I thought it was pretty obvious that they don't play the game at a high level, even from his comments in the interview. Like, if you've never heard anything from any dev ever, like the surprise that he had as to like, wow, you don't get enough T2 blue mats, like when you move on from the Ultima 6, or, just some of the basics. I'm like, you're not getting enough ions from those blue ISO orbs. He clearly's never done Doom Raid, because anybody who's done Doom Raid and got those blue ISO orbs, you run out of the ions super fast, and it's very annoying because you have the stuff to upgrade, but you don't have the ions. I think everybody has the same problem. So I just think, and I'll say this from having more conversations with the devs in the background over time, is they're like shocked at things that I think are obvious. Like, I'm like, you realize we wake up in the middle of the night sometimes to do a clear on a war? And like, really? Like, oh my God, people do that? And it's like, or the war matchmaking. I had asked a dev one time, well, what, I'm like, do you realize that there are a lot of alliances that just can't compete with these other alliances that are 100 million TCP higher? They're like, well, why don't they just improve their rosters? I'm like, are you kidding? Have you lost your mind? Like, I just think that I don't think that they're playing it in anything that approaches the way we do.
MobileGamer. So I almost called you OMG again. MobileGamer. What do you think is a solution for this? I mean, how do you see the bridging this gap between what the devs define as hardcore player, what the players define as hardcore players, and how they could be some kind of communication and feel the pains and problems that we're getting as everyday players a little sooner than they are right now?
All right, so I think there's one obstacle that they'll never be able to overcome, and I'm going to make an assumption here is that they're playing their accounts on the public servers and they're given some sort of stipend of money, some free game currency to play the game, right? I'm just going to assume that. Because I think this is what every game does. Like, other developers do this, and they have restrictions. They say maybe stay out of the top 100 of the arena, or blah blah blah. Like, they tell them not to like negatively impact competitive players. And I feel like this will always create a problem when you have people playing the game where they don't have any skin in it themselves, whether that's time and or actual money. Because like when I'm playing the game, or anybody that's playing the game like the way that I feel that most of us watching this video are playing the game, we have a significant amount of time invested and or money, and we take a look at our rosters, and it's something that we care about and that we're working on, and most people are trying to do it efficiently and get the most out of it and work towards it. And I feel somehow that like when I've engaged with other developers that play hero collectors and their employees, and then they're given some sort of stipend of in-game currency, or maybe they're given a way of sidestepping some of the more tedious parts of the game, they don't have the same passion or approach to the game that we do. And then some of them just don't play it at all. And I think that is something that is terrible. And also, and I don't know that they can just like make it mandatory that their employees play the game or not. But the amount of oversights and that they have, I believe that Cerebro's perception is way off. I don't feel like they have any understanding of I think there's a big disconnect between what's actually going on in the game and the developers, and a lot of that disconnect can be overcome if they played the game more.
One thing, can I just Yeah, I just want to add to that is I think another thing that they have that we don't and that can never be changed. And by the way, I think your comments are straight on point, Mobile Gamer, is they know what's coming next in a way we don't. And this game, a big part of the problem, the part of the way this game works, right, is that they're very vague about everything. We have no idea what's going to happen next. So you make bad investments and you're screwed over and you have limited resources. And then you feel like, oh man, do I want to spend $20 because I just upgraded my Mystic team and I didn't know the Mystic rating team was coming next patch. But they know everything that's coming. They know everything that's going to happen. So they can invest in a way that we can't.
God, yeah, and I'm not sure if they're actually caring. Maybe they do, but maybe they're just maybe they're still on Ultima 7 and just it's the time or something. But yeah, there's a lot of different things that they need to do to fix this. But playing and looking at these characters in a different way, I think will help. One of the things they do to try to find some of our pain points, though, that was mentioned in this interview that wasn't previously mentioned, is using that Sentinel Analysis software, looking for keywords, how often these keywords are popping up. And one of the big things that he mentions is like, oh yeah, I know that Emma is super popular in the meta because she's always popping up. She may be popping up for different reasons, which was mentioned on Reddit. But do you think that this Sentinel Analysis software, what you've heard about it so far, Philosopher, do you think that this is a good tool to see what the pain points of the community are?
Not at all. I mean, I was really surprised by that. I mean, Emma has become increasingly irrelevant as a character in the meta. I mean, she's got some use. I don't want to suggest otherwise. And yes, people may be wondering, when is she going to become farmable? If you're free to play, I'm sure it's very frustrating how long she's been unfarmable. Or I'm having trouble beating Emma on node 12 of DD4 or whatever.
That is a very specific point.
See, right. I interpreted that part of the interview differently. I thought that was that before Emma came to the game, Emma was showing up in their software constantly, and that's the reason why they brought her to the game. That's the way I interpreted that part of the conversation. Maybe I didn't understand that part entirely. I thought he was referring to before she came to the game, she was appearing everywhere, and so they brought her to the game.
No. They were saying
I interpreted that different. I interpreted it right now. Is that?
That's how I interpreted it too.
If he's talking about Emma showing up now, 1000% it's about lack of availability and the problems in Node 12 DD4. That's garbage. So here's the problem with all developers. It's not the problem with all developers, is that developers are numbers driven, right? They don't value to a high degree anecdotal evidence. Like if I go to them and I say, hey, my alliance mates are quitting the game, that doesn't mean anything to them. They want like actual numbers. And I believe this software actually gives them a number that their brain craves. And then whether or not that number translates to what's actually happening requires a lot of insight. But they're not interested in anecdotal evidence ever, has been my experience with dealing with them. They just don't want to know about your feelings or the feelings. They want like numbers. They're very much numbers driven. Everything is numbers and math. And so, getting feedback on how the community feels in a number form is what they want, rather than my opinion and your feelings. It's a very strange situation, but from a business point of view, I kind of understand that.
Yeah, it just makes it a lot easier. And one of the comments I got from chat this morning was, I work in research. I've used some Sentinel Analysis software before. It takes a lot of content to understand the true reasoning behind that analysis a software spits out. What do you think Cerebro needs to do in addition to just using that software to make it so that he understands the context of all this?
The context is everything. Go ahead, Phil.
Yes. Yeah, Phil.
Yeah, I was going to say, what I think is he's got to spend a lot more time in the community. One of the first questions I asked him was, what are you doing to hear people's voices? What do you do all the time? And I asked him that because I wanted him to say, okay, I go on Reddit, I go here, I go there, whatever he does on Discord. I mean, I do think, to be fair to the guy, he's doing the work of like 3 people over there. Yeah, he's overworked.
I think that is true. 3 people right now.
Yeah. So I to be fair to him, but it's just, I do think you can't, it's like, for example, I go onto the beginners Discord regularly to talk to them about what's going on, but I can't, you have to really spend time talking to them and puzzling through their problems with them to get a sense of what they're going through. It's just, you can't just I couldn't just look at a word cloud of what they talk about in the beginners Discord Because they might be all complaining about Emma because they can't get Emma or something. It doesn't mean anything, without really talking to them.
That is an excellent point. So I think he needs to add that step into his process. Maybe when all the positions get fully staffed, this won't be as much of an issue, and maybe this is just like a time-saving thing that he's doing right now until they get the full staff that they need. But yeah, this is, I think, a big area of disconnect with the devs and the community. And I think there's one thing that really stood out to me as a way that I think the community might be disconnecting with the attention of the devs, when Cerebro mentioned that the content is not designed to be conquered on day one. Do you think that a lot of the community feels that the content is designed to be countered on day one, MobileGamer?
Oh, I hope not, and I don't want to get into it, but yeah, it's very obvious to me, and I mean, I've seen this for a while, that content comes to the game, and most likely the optimal way of going through it is not been sold to us yet. The solution to the problem that they're presenting to us hasn't even been made available in the game. And I could just think about DD3. I mean, a lot of us went through DD3 before Ebony Maw was out, and how much easier was that part of DD3 once Ebony Maw came to the game? Things like that. DD4, how much easier is DD4 now with characters like Kestrel? It's just different, and so this is very deliberate. So when new content comes to the game, it's almost designed to either be extremely painful to get through with the tools that we have now, or almost unbeatable. And then it's made easier, by whatever they sell us next.
Philosopher. So he says it's not designed to be conquered in day one. You're in you've been in one of the higher alliances. I'm not sure where you're ranking now as far as collection power, but what is the sentiment around the Krakens in the community when new content is released? Is most of the players feeling like, hey, we got to beat this? Why can't we beat this? This game is trash, or is it like, all right, now we got to build? What is the general feeling that you're getting?
Well, I think they find it interesting. I will just tell you, there's a lot of theory crafting and discussion when, let's say, Doom Difficulty 1 comes out. Like, oh, wow, how do we beat this? And, they all have to spend a lot of cores and heals in the beginning, but there's a lot of discussion and a lot of fun for them in terms of, okay, I got to build this, got to do that, got to switch this character to skirmisher, got to use this character on this node and that character on that node. And you cobble together stuff. So, I had, for example, different teams for every skill node of the Doom raid until, we had Infinity Watch and Secret Avengers come out. So, yeah, I think that there's an excitement, and now they're bored again, right? Everyone in my alliance is more or less bored with Difficulty 1. And I think that's probably an issue that the game has to deal with, is keeping everyone interested at, different levels of the game at all times.
OMJ, final question. What do you think the devs need to do to keep this community interested? Is it more content? Is it reducing the play time? What do you think what was your overall take from this interview?
What do I mean, I think Cerebro said something very interesting about engagement. He spoke at length about engagement, and I think that there are two ways of creating engagement, and he pretty much said more or less that their primary focus of his boss and everything was to have engagement, and I feel like they're counting the loading screen when we log into the game as engagement. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's because they're looking at a number, and yet they're not doing this analysis on whether or not that actual engagement was fun or was it not fun. And I think that RTA is a good example of that. Has that forced engagement in screen time, which is their primary goal, according to what Cerebro said in the interview, or was that fun? And so I think if they want to make engagement, I think that's fine. But is that engagement fun? Are they creating game modes that people want to play regardless of how much time it takes? Game modes that are fun to play, that are regardless of the rewards attached. Imagine this. Imagine a game mode where I don't care about how much time I spend playing it, and I don't care about the rewards attached because it's fun. And I know that all of us have had experiences in our lives playing video games. For me, I can think about when Overwatch came out. I would look over my shoulder and the sun would be coming up. There was no rewards attached. I didn't care about how much time I spent playing the game. It was fun. And I think if the engagement is, if they're focusing on fun rather than just total numbers of engagement, total number of hours that we're staring at our phones, total number of hours that we're pressing the auto button, total number of time. I mean, how much of this engagement is just the loading screen? I swear, it's such a long loading screen, right?
20% of the time. I mean, we've talked about it before, right? The big thing that any game needs is fun. Focus on fun. And focus on making sure the details are right and everything else kind of falls into place. Philosopher, what is your big takeaway from the interview with Cerebro? Did it change any of your perceptions of the devs? Did it reaffirm some of these? What was your big takeaway?
Wow. I think they're trying to listen to us maybe more than they have before because the numbers are down in the game. I think I give them applauded from that perspective, like definitely was trying to listen and take what we had to say into account. But I think they're out of step with what the issues are that the player base has. And I think there was no vision for this game and where it's going that was apparent through it. In other words, the first question I asked him was, what are you trying to accomplish here with this? Where are you trying to take the game? What are we trying to create? And he didn't really have, I think, an answer for that. Now, to be fair, I didn't give him the questions beforehand, okay? But it was not clear to me where the light out of the wilderness is for this. In other words, I got to tell you, Mobile Gamer, there is not a game mode for me right now in this game that's that much fun anymore. I like Alliance War when we have competitive ones.
Ouch.
But I'm just being real with you. Raids right now are stale for me. RTA is something I do when I'm watching, sports on TV and I just press buttons. And I'm not engaged with certainly Arena and all that's not fun, Blitz and all that. So I think they need to figure out, Grand Arena Tournament may be there, but that may take 6 months to come to the game. And I think there needs to be some reckoning with it over there to figure out what are they doing with this game? Where's it going? What do they want the end game players to actually spend their time doing? And I don't know if they've figured that out.
I 100% agree with that sentiment. I think they still need to figure out some things. And I think hopefully this recent, the last few months was kind of a wake-up call for them. It appears that they're listening to more to the community. I think there's some miscommunication, some misconceptions between the devs and the players that I hope we've identified and we could sort of work for, and hopefully everything gets staffed and this new game mode is going to solve a lot of the issues. Thank you guys for joining me. MobileGamer, before you go, tell everybody where they could find you.
I'm on at Server Reset every day except for Saturday on Twitch. And then there's YouTube videos too.
Nice. And all the links will be down below. And Philosopher, the links to your awesome video with Cerebro will be down, but let everybody know where they can find you, my brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Check out my Discord. If that's not linked below, you can find it on my YouTube channel. I'm always trying to put out at least a video a day on YouTube, and I'm on Twitch most weeknights if I can do it around an hour or two after Server Reset.
Nice. Well, thank you guys. I think we're going to go over to your channel to continue the discussion. There was so much unpack in that interview, but I didn't want to talk about those things that stood out to me. So we're going to go over to your channel, OMG. We're going to go over to your channel, Philosopher. And before you guys go, give me that Hulk fist bump. I can see it is. ValleyFlyin, MobileGamer, Philosopher.
I can see you, Phil. Do it.
Ouch. Did I see your face?
I like those sunglasses.
I like the